Melissa,
Ooh.
you have been through quite a journey as a location independent therapist over the last decade. And that's what we're here to talk about. When I first met you, you were in Spain, and I remember you moving to the Netherlands and back to the US, but that's just the very surface level of what it can be like to be a location independent therapist. Why did you move abroad? And how did that go for you?
Well, Sonia, you should read
Yes,
my
it's
book,
all in your
and I
book. Yay!
good thing I had this right here, and you can learn all about why I moved abroad. No, I always had a dream, which so many of us have, is to how do I combine international living with this work that I was so passionate about. I hadn't gone to grad school yet, so originally I went abroad just thinking like, okay, I need to kind of get this out of my system so I can go to grad school in the U.S. And I didn't get into grad school. I fell in love in Spain and thankfully also figured out a way to go to grad school in Spain. And I realized actually that's a great idea because uh, grad school in the US is way too expensive. It's ridiculous. Going to grad school in Spain had pros and cons, and I'll get to some of those as I talk about like where I've wound up with my education and career. But overall, I'm really happy with the choices I made. I had some amazing opportunities open to me for me living in Spain, and I started. That's how I started working with expats. I was working offline for a couple of years there in Spain. Um, and then when I met you, it was around the end of that time when I was starting to consider going fully online. I was moving to the Netherlands, and once I committed to online, I haven't looked back. I don't even know how I did the offline thing before.
And I remember you talking about the pros and cons of the offline and online, but part of
Yeah.
that being of part of the expat bubble that we work in. And then, being an expat yourself in the country and sharing that cultural experience with your clients, but then also wanting to work with clients in other locations and then actually wanting to relocate yourself. So it probably really made sense to switch to online at that time, but you were hesitant. I believe you were not one of those who was fully on board when you first
No.
started.
No, because that was in 2017, I think it was, and nobody was doing this. I mean, obviously they were, right? I joined the Facebook group that you and I now co-moderate, and but it was pretty small back then, and I received a lot of pushback from colleagues in the mental health world about how online therapy isn't real therapy and it's dangerous, and I had dabbled with online therapy for expats that lived in remote locations or maybe, offline clients who were traveling. We did it for like a few sessions, but I didn't think I could make a career out of it. And I felt like, like who am I to prioritize like what I want to do with my personal life, like travel or not have a commute? Who am I to choose that when like I'm doing this service job that's supposed to be about helping people and putting my clients first? And I don't feel like that anymore, but it definitely like took a lot of like working through my own mindset around it to fully jump on board.
And you did the thing that I always say. People often ask me how I can manage to be a digital nomad, and part of it is like it's actually much easier to never settle anywhere because you don't have to go through all the admin work
Mm.
of moving to a new country. I have never had to open a bank account in a different country. I've never had to, yes, I need a SIM card when I'm traveling, I need internet, but everything stayed in my own country. And that made it so much easier than having to get titles recognized, having to get a work permit, having to do all of these things that you have been going through and you went through.
That I have erased from my
And
memory
so
because
many of our colleagues, right, in the community or people reaching out
Mm.
to us, that's what they want. They
Yeah.
want to move to a new country. They want to change, usually for personal reasons. They want to live somewhere else, and but they want to figure out how to still do this with the work they do. So my recommendation would be just become a nomad. It's so much easier. But I do understand that this is not the solution for everyone.
Yeah, but I mean, I would usually say do not try to work offline. Do not try to get your a degree recognized because I went through that in Spain and it was multiple year process. I don't know. I can't, really I can't. I don't know how I did it. I've
I don't
heard
know
the
anything
process is
about it
really so
except for the
complicated.
word homologation. That's the only
Yep.
thing I know that people constantly talk about and how much
Yeah.
fun it is to go through that.
Yes. Fun. And I went through all that, and then life offered me this opportunity to move to the Netherlands, and it was like, oh, well, I guess I'll just leave all that behind. Spain is messy, so even if we go back to Spain in the future, my husband is has a Spanish citizenship. If we go back, I still have to do like another master's or something because they're like, oh, that was back in 2014, you were a therapist here, but now you're not. So it's messy. And I was able to do a similar thing when I moved to the Netherlands to get registered as a therapist, a psychologist, but still also so much work. And every time I feel like it's taken me a while to like get the momentum back with my business, because it's just really hard to relocate your whole business. And honestly, it's one of the reasons why I decided not to be a therapist when I moved back to the US. I mean, it's even more complicated in the US. They do not really like it when people have gone to grad school outside of the US. And so it's very complicated, and also just, as I said, I went through it 2 other times. I didn't want to have to go through all of it all over again. And also because we have been here 7 years now, but my husband and I always talk about going abroad again. So I just, why get settled in one spot if I don't even know if this is what's in store for the future.
But then this does bring up new professional identity issues, right? And that's the topic that's kind of
Yes.
moving through this story is who are you when your titles are not recognized, when you're not considered an equal, even though you know you're qualified and you were someone in your last country and then you moved to a new country. And this is something many expats struggle with and many people who move to a new country, but especially when it's connected to that professional identity that isn't seen as what you know it's worth. And I think many therapists struggle with imposter syndrome to start with, but this is definitely not helping.
No, and it was really like a not midlife crisis, but like an identity crisis when I decided like, okay, I'm going to become a coach when I moved to the US. And for a long time, I felt like I couldn't even introduce myself as a therapist here in the US. I did get some guidance that I shouldn't like advertise myself as a psychologist, just to not confuse people. But 7 years in, I think I'm finally finding some peace with it. And I've had definitely some positives with the switch too. I mean, one of the reasons why I switched was because I do a lot of repatriation coaching. And if I was licensed in Washington State, which is where I live, I wouldn't be able to work with American clients who are moving back home unless it was just in Washington State. It's like, well, that's silly. Like, I'm going to have to get rid of all the clients I have now. I'm going to have to be referring people out all the time. And I do refer people out. When I Usually when it's somebody with a diagnosable condition, if they're not being seen by like a psychiatrist or a therapist alongside, I usually do refer them out. Or sometimes as we get working together, I'm like, I don't think I'm the right fit. But overall, I feel a lot more confident about it. I think probably also when I made the decision, I was still very close to my years of academia too, like the PhD and stuff. And I was like, oh gosh, what is this of being a coach? And now I feel like I'm more, in the entrepreneur mindset, like doing my own thing. And I've got the lit community too, which helps so much to be, I think all of us are a bit out of the box thinkers and like being creative and, while also, being ethical but figuring out which kind of gray areas we're okay with managing.
And practicing a lot of self-compassion along the way, I believe, is what you keep advocating for and practicing yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I'm sure my self-compassion journey has also helped me with the just kind of owning my identity and like this is my journey. And yeah, I think I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from clients too who have, maybe done therapy in the past and it hasn't really been what they're looking for. And I was always a therapist who I feel like was very like, I provided homework, forward thinking, trying to help people to grow. But I think that's a lot of what people look in for coaching. I think a lot of times people don't understand that therapy can be that too. And so that's what I found too. A lot of my clients come to me because they're looking specifically for that somebody with a background in therapy, but who also is just, going to help them grow and not spend so much time on the past, which can be very intimidating to a lot of people.
And I think that's one of the things we both learned by living in different countries and working with different audiences and different clients in different places, and especially with colleagues from different backgrounds, is usually when you get trained somewhere, you get very much taught this is the one way to do it. Whether it's the type of therapy you're trained in, or whether it's therapy versus coaching, or whether it's whatever it
Mhm.
is, psychotherapy or counseling in Germany is a huge one. And then you talk to other people and they're like, oh no, counseling is a real thing. Like, obviously, you can get licensed in that. Like, what? No, that's not true. That's just like coaching. Like, what are we talking about? And then actually, coaching can be, you can get training. Like, so I
Mhm.
think being, seeing people from other places and doing it in different ways and understanding that there's not just this one way of doing this licensing type of thing, or, and, but it also needs to be ethical, right? And how, I'm not just advertising for everyone to just become a coach overnight. So how do we manage this while also understanding that a lot of the rules and regulations have not caught up with the current world reality of most, living reality of most people, whether it's the therapist or the client. And yes, laws are important and regulations are important. And, I'm glad my licensing board has some rules around how to do this, but they also don't really know how to handle people like us. So we need to always find a way to navigate this in some way.
Yeah.
I think that's, yeah, that's been your journey very much.
Yes. Yes. And it's been lonely at times. And that's again why I think I love the lit community, right? I mean, we're the co-founders, but I know I've said it before. Like if I wasn't a co-founder, I'd be a member of the community because it is just very nice to be surrounded by other people who are not following that like the straight and narrow path of what we're supposed to do. Yeah, and I'm again, I'm at that point now where I kind of appreciate the flexibility that what I've landed on, what it offers me. I definitely am not advocating for everyone to be coaches. I have so many, I could go on a rant about the coaching industry, but I get like, yeah, I mean, my priority for me and for all the therapists that we work with is like finding that balance of like what's good for clients and then what's also good for us. And again, what is ethical and legal, and legal is complicated, right? Like we always say the world's not ready for us. And we get a lot of people who come to us, a lot of therapists who want those like black and white answers about
Yeah.
how do I work in this country? How can I, make sure I can work with these clients who are living in that country or who are traveling to different countries? And it's not so simple. Like we don't, who has those answers? Does anybody have those answers?
Well, I know that I asked once a question to my licensing board and I got two different answers from two people when I asked at different moments. So I don't think like we think it should be clear, but it often
Yeah.
isn't. And I think that's the hard part of, you can find a lot of answers, and obviously you need to find some of them and you need to understand the system as a whole. But there will be moments when you need to figure out how to do this. And I think, yeah, the lit community or being connected to like-minded colleagues is such an interesting step in that, because one thing I find always super funny as someone licensed in Germany is how US therapists react to me saying that I take at least 3 months off a year. And they're like, or like a month over the holidays, like, how can you do this? And I'm like, well, I used to do 6 weeks at least when I was employed. Of course, I'm doing more now. And that's a life goal to not just do this once I'm retired, but to actually do this now. And I had to make my practice work around this. And yes, I also travel to different locations and I do work with, but then you find a way to make it work. It's not impossible, but you need to first realize that wait, we can take holidays as therapists and we can set boundaries and we can like, yeah, of course, every therapist in Europe does this. It's not
Yeah.
that special.
Yeah. And actually maybe living in Europe helped me with my whole like, not putting myself on like the back burner and putting on my own oxygen mask first as a
Mhm.
therapist, we'll say. Um,
So before we end this, do you want to tell us a bit more about your book? Because that's coming
yes,
out now, at least very soon
yes.
when while we're
Well,
recording this.
I will say a couple of things. One thing I did want to say too was that I do tend to have a lot of people who reach out to me to ask about, either what is it like moving to Spain as a therapist? What is it like to be somebody who like switches to coaching or adds coaching to their therapy practice? And so I think we'll put a link with this video for, I do offer supervision calls, so we'll do that. But that's not the right fit for everybody. Maybe not everybody needs that, but everybody could benefit from my book. This, and I say that only because the book does talk a lot about my journey. It's my 10 years of living abroad, and a lot about my journey of like just trying to figure out what it means to be a therapist. And like, yeah, a lot of what we talked about today, right? Like this, what I feel like, as wanting to help people with mental health didn't match always with what I got trained in, and then finding kind of the modalities that I wanted to work with, and then ultimately finding mindful self-compassion and just how healing that was for me. And I talk about my own mental health journey in the book, and then how healing it was for my clients too. So if you would have interviewed me a few weeks ago, I might have been like, I don't know if you should read my book, but I've had some early readers who've had really positive feedback about it, so I'm feeling more excited. I think it could be a good read. So we'll link to that too.
So yes, so if you would like more, you can book a consultation call with Melissa about all things she did and how to do them or how to do them better. You can also book one with me, but on different topics. You can join the Lit community. We have many things happening inside, from business coaching to clinical event supervision, co-working sessions, a book club. I very much hope we will be reading your book soon. A
Yeah.
movie club. We have lots of things happening there. You can obviously and should read Melissa's book. And if you want to start with some very free and easy content, check out some more videos on our YouTube channel. The free resources on our website. We have a bunch of things around, especially navigating those rules and regulations and where to start if you're just getting started. Also, how to market a business internationally, because that's a whole new topic when you go into this world. How do you set your fees when you work with different markets and different typical rates? And we have a Facebook group that's pretty big as well, where people ask a lot of these very beginner kind of questions as well. And obviously leave a comment below, and we hope to see you soon. Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.